Stoic wisdom, ancient philosophy, mental mastery. Brutal Stoic laws that kill negative thinking. Rewire your mind, reclaim your power, rebuild your life. Crossed swords. What if I told you that the greatest war you will ever fight has nothing to do with other people, circumstances, or the chaos of the world around you? What if the most devastating battle of your life, the one that shapes everything, the one that determines whether you rise or fall, is happening right now, inside your own mind? Most people lose this war every single day. They wake up drowning in anxiety about the future. They lie awake at night replaying every mistake they've ever made. They let other people's opinions become chains around their ankles. They hand their emotional power to circumstances they cannot control, and then wonder why life feels like it's happening to them instead of through them. But here's the truth the Stoics knew over 2,000 years ago, and it is just as devastatingly relevant today. Your mind is not your enemy. Your undisciplined mind is. The ancient Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, were not sitting in ivory towers spinning philosophical theories. These were emperors, former slaves, exiles, and soldiers. They faced war, poverty, illness, grief, and betrayal. And from the fire of real suffering, they forged a set of laws, not suggestions, not guidelines, but ruthless, non-negotiable mental laws that became the foundation of an unshakable mind. Today, I am going to give you those laws. Not watered-down versions, not feel-good platitudes. The brutal, unfiltered truth that has the power to kill every strand of negative thinking that has been holding you back. If you're ready to stop surviving and start mastering your mind, this is for you. Let's begin. Crossed swords. The laws. Crossed swords. The first law: you do not control the world, you only control your response to it. This is the foundational law of Stoicism, and it is brutal in its simplicity. Everything in your life falls into exactly two categories: the things within your control and the things outside your control. And here is the truth that most people spend their entire lives refusing to accept: almost everything is outside your control. The weather does not ask your permission. People will not always behave the way you want. Your body will age, plans will collapse, loved ones will disappoint you. The economy will fluctuate. The world is a chaotic, unpredictable, indifferent machine, and no amount of worry, anger, or mental anguish will change that by a single degree. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, and Epictetus, a man who was literally born into slavery, made it the very first lesson of his philosophy. He had no control over his chains. He had no control over his master's cruelty. But he discovered something no one could take from him: the sovereign territory of his own mind. Think about how you spend your mental energy. How much of it goes toward things you cannot change? You replay arguments in your head. You lie awake dreading tomorrow. You obsess over what someone said about you last week. You rage at traffic, at news headlines, at the behavior of people you'll never even meet. All of that energy, all of that fire, poured into a void, changing nothing, costing you everything. Now imagine redirecting every single drop of that energy toward what you can actually influence: your attitude, your effort, your words, your choices, your response. That is where your power lives. That is the only battlefield where you can win. The first step to killing negative thinking is recognizing that most negative thinking is nothing more than the mind throwing a tantrum over things it was never designed to control. Stop fighting reality. Accept what is, then act from that place of clarity. This is not passive resignation. This is the most active, powerful stance a human being can take. Every morning, before you look at your phone, before you check the news, ask yourself this: what is actually within my control today? Then give your whole self to those things, and release everything else. This one practice alone can transform your mental landscape within weeks. Are you getting value from this? If these Stoic laws are already shifting something in your mind, imagine what every week of this content could do. Subscribe to the channel and join thousands walking the path of mental mastery. Bell subscribe for more wisdom. The second law: your perception is your prison, or your liberation. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that should be carved above the door of every human mind: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is not motivational poetry. This is a surgical truth about the nature of suffering and perception. Nothing has meaning until you give it meaning. Events are neutral. It is the story you tell about them that creates your emotional reality. Two people can lose the same job. One collapses into shame and despair. The other sees it as the push they needed to finally pursue their real calling. Same event, radically different realities. The only difference is perception. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Marcus Aurelius. Negative thinking is almost always a perception problem, not a reality problem. The mind takes a raw event and wraps it in catastrophic interpretation. I failed this test becomes I am a failure. She rejected me becomes I am unlovable. I'm going through a hard time becomes my life is ruined. The story expands until it consumes everything, and the mind drowns in the story rather than swimming through the event. The Stoic practice here is called cognitive reframing, and modern psychology has spent decades catching up to what the Stoics already knew. You can consciously, deliberately choose a different interpretation. Not a false one, not toxic positivity, but a more complete and more empowering one. When something painful happens, ask yourself, is this the worst possible interpretation, or is there another way to see this? What would a wise person see in this situation that I might be missing? What looks like an obstacle might be a redirection. What feels like a loss might be making room for something better. What seems like rejection might be protection. Your perception is the lens through which your entire life is filtered. Dirty that lens with fear and bitterness, and everything looks dark. Clean it with Stoic discipline, and you'll find that even the hardest seasons of life carry something worth mining: wisdom, strength, character, clarity. The Stoic does not ask, why is this happening to me? They ask, what is this asking me to become? The third law, memento mori, remember you will die, so live fully now. This law sounds brutal. It is precisely the point. The Stoics kept death at the forefront of their minds. Not to be morbid, not to be paralyzed by fear, but to be violently, urgently, unashamedly alive. Memento mori, remember you must die, was a daily Stoic meditation, and it is one of the most powerful antidotes to negative thinking ever discovered. Here is why. Most of the things that dominate your mental energy and fuel your negative thinking are, when held against the backdrop of death, laughably small. The embarrassing moment from 3 years ago that still makes you cringe. The argument with your coworker. The fear of what people will think if you try and fail. When you truly internalize that your time here is finite and precious, the trivial loses its grip on you. Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. Seneca. Seneca wrote with an urgency that cuts through centuries. We treat time as if we have infinite amounts of it, wasting it on worry, resentment, and meaningless distraction, and then, too late, we realize it was the most valuable thing we ever had. Negative thinking is a form of time theft. Every hour spent catastrophizing about the future or grieving a past you cannot change is an hour stolen from the one life you actually have. The Stoics understood this viscerally. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the most powerful empire in the world, reminded himself daily that emperors die too. All of his wealth, power, and glory would return to dust. And knowing that, really knowing it, made every present moment sacred. Try this practice. Every morning, before anything else, acknowledge that this day is a gift you were not guaranteed. You woke up, you are breathing. You have a chance, one more chance, to think better, act better, live more fully. And every evening, ask yourself, did I spend today as someone who knows their time is limited? Did I waste mental energy on things that will not matter when my time comes? Memento mori does not make life darker. It makes it blaze. It strips away the pettiness, the procrastination, the unnecessary suffering, and leaves behind a clarity so bright it can guide you through even the darkest seasons. You do not have time for the luxury of prolonged negative thinking. Your life is too short and too precious for that. The fourth law, amor fati, love your fate, even the parts that break you. Friedrich Nietzsche borrowed this concept from the Stoics and called it his highest aspiration. Amor fati, love of fate, not mere acceptance, not reluctant tolerance. Absolute, ferocious, unconditional love for everything that has happened, is happening, and will happen to you. This is the most challenging of all the Stoic laws, and also the most transformative. Because every human being carries wounds, broken childhoods, failed marriages, wasted years, lost opportunities, betrayals that rewired how you trust, losses that reshaped who you are. And most of us carry those wounds like anchors, dragging behind us, pulling us back, refusing to let us move forward freely. Do not seek to have events happen as you wish, but wish events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly. Epictetus. Amor fati does not ask you to pretend your pain was not real. It does not ask you to smile through suffering or pretend bad things were actually good. It asks something far harder and far more powerful. It asks you to recognize that every single thing that has happened to you, including the worst of it, has made you exactly who you are in this moment. And who you are in this moment is the only raw material you have to build anything better with. The person who was hurt became capable of empathy. The person who failed learned what they could not have learned from success. The person who lost everything discovered who they truly were when the external props were stripped away. This is not silver lining thinking. This is a ruthless acknowledgement that the fire that burns you is also the fire that forges you. When you practice amor fati, you stop being a victim of your own story. You become the author of it. You look at every setback, every loss, every humiliation, and instead of asking why did this have to happen, you say, this happened. I will use it. That mental shift, from victim to transformer, is where negative thinking goes to die. Start today. Take the hardest thing in your past. the thing you most wish had not happened, and ask yourself, what did it teach you? What strength did it demand from you? What did it reveal about you that you could not have discovered any other way? Find the answer honestly, and you will begin to feel the weight of resentment and regret begin to lift. This content is free. Your growth is priceless. We release deep dive Stoic wisdom every week, for people who are serious about mastering their minds and building unshakable character. If that's you, hit subscribe and ring that bell. Subscribe to the channel. The fifth law: the obstacle is the way, resistance is your greatest teacher. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, never intending it for public eyes, that the fire tests gold, and adversity tests the strong. He was not writing inspiration for a crowd. He was writing commands to himself. Reminders for the days when the burden of empire felt too heavy, when enemies circled, when his own body was failing him. He needed to remember, the obstacle is not in the way. The obstacle is the way. Negative thinking peaks at the moment of resistance. When a plan fails, when progress stalls, when something refuses to bend to your will, the mind floods with catastrophe. It's not working. I should give up. This means I'm not good enough. This means it won't work. This means I've wasted my time. The mental storm can be so loud it drowns out every rational voice. The greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it. Skillful pilots gain their reputation from storms and tempests. Epictetus. But here is what the Stoics knew and what experience confirms. Every obstacle contains, embedded within it, the exact lesson or strength you need to reach the next level. You cannot build discipline without resistance. You cannot develop resilience without adversity. You cannot grow in wisdom without being tested. The very things that feel like they are blocking your path are, in fact, the curriculum of your becoming. This does not mean obstacles aren't real or that they don't hurt. It means that your relationship with the obstacle is a choice. You can stand before it in despair and defeat, or you can examine it with the focused curiosity of a craftsman studying a difficult material, asking, what does this require from me? What angle haven't I tried? What am I learning from this resistance? The greatest achievers in human history, soldiers, artists, entrepreneurs, leaders, were not people who avoided obstacles. They were people who understood that obstacles were not the enemy of their progress. They were the engine of it. Stop begging for a path without obstacles. Start becoming someone obstacles cannot stop. The next time you encounter resistance, today, tomorrow, this week, pause before the flood of negative thinking takes over. Breathe, and ask, what is this teaching me? What is this asking me to do differently? What would the most capable version of me do right now? Then act from that place. That is the Stoic way. That is the way through. The sixth law: guard your inner citadel. Your mind is sacred ground. Marcus Aurelius used a specific and deliberate image for the Stoic mind, the inner citadel. A fortress, a place so fortified, so disciplined, so sovereign that no external force, no insult, no tragedy, no person, no event, could breach its walls. Think about what you allow into your mind on a daily basis. The news cycle, designed to maximize your anxiety. Social media engineered to make you compare your ordinary life to someone else's highlight reel. Conversations that drain instead of fill. Environments that breed cynicism and mediocrity. Relationships that chisel away at your belief in yourself. And then there are the internal invasions. The self-criticism that never sleeps. the rumination that revisits every failure, the worry that colonizes the future. The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are. Marcus Aurelius. The Stoics did not passively accept whatever entered their minds. They were ferocious gatekeepers. They understood something our distraction-saturated culture has largely forgotten. Attention is the most sacred resource you possess. What you give your attention to, you give your life to. What you feed your mind becomes the substance of your thinking, your emotions, your decisions, and ultimately your destiny. Guarding your inner citadel is an active, daily discipline. It means curating what you consume, not in a bubble of false comfort, but with intentionality. It means choosing who you spend your energy with. It means setting limits on how long you allow negative thought loops to run before you interrupt them with discipline and redirect them. It means noticing when someone's opinion is trying to redefine your worth and choosing, consciously, not to let it in. This is not arrogance. This is survival. You cannot pour clean water from a contaminated vessel. You cannot offer clarity, creativity, kindness, or strength to others if your inner world is a constant battlefield of noise and negativity. Protecting your mind is not selfishness. It is the single most generous thing you can do, because everything you give to the world flows from that inner place. Audit your mental environment ruthlessly. What are you consuming? What is it costing you? What do you need to remove, reduce, or replace to build a mind capable of the life you want? The citadel does not build itself. You build it, every day, through every choice you make about where your attention goes. The seventh law: virtue is the only true good, everything else is noise. This is the law that ties everything together, and it may be the most radical of all. The Stoics held one belief above all others: that virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline is the only true good. Everything else, wealth, reputation, comfort, pleasure, the approval of others, these are what the Stoics called preferred indifference. Nice to have. Not worth sacrificing your peace of mind over. Never worth making the source of your happiness, because anything that can be taken from you was never really yours to begin with. Wealth is the slave of the wise man and the master of the fool. Seneca. Here is why this law demolishes negative thinking at its roots. Most negative thinking is fueled by one thing: attachment to outcomes outside your control. You need the promotion to feel worthy. You need the relationship to feel complete. You need the number on the scale or the number in the bank account or the number of followers on your profile to feel like enough. And because those things can always be taken away, threatened, or withheld, your mental state is at the mercy of forces that were never within your control. The Stoics broke this chain entirely. They placed their identity, their worth, their sense of well-being not in outcomes, but in their own character. Did I act with integrity today? Did I face my fear with courage? Did I treat the people in my life with justice and care? Did I maintain discipline when it would have been easier to collapse? These are the questions that matter. These are the measurements that are entirely, unconditionally yours. When you build your inner life on virtue rather than outcomes, negative thinking loses most of its ammunition. You cannot be destroyed by losing what you were never dependent on. You cannot be paralyzed by fear of failure if you know that your response to failure, the courage, the integrity, the persistence you bring to it, is the only thing that defines you. This is the deepest liberation the Stoics offer: freedom from the tyranny of outcomes. Not indifference to results, but the unshakable knowledge that your worth is not determined by them. Do the right thing. Be the right person. Bring virtue to everything you touch. And let the results be what they are. That is the Stoic foundation upon which an unbreakable mind is built. Ask yourself tonight, and every night, regardless of what happened today, did I act in alignment with my values? If yes, you have succeeded. If not, tomorrow is a new opportunity to try again. That is all you are ever asked to do. That is enough. That, the Stoics believed, is everything. Crossed swords. Final words. Crossed swords. You have just walked through 7 of the most powerful mental laws ever forged by human wisdom. Let me bring them back together for you one final time. The Stoics teach us to control only what is ours to control, to see with clear perception rather than fearful distortion, to remember the brevity of life and let it sharpen our attention, to love our fate so completely that even our wounds become weapons. They teach us to see obstacles as the path itself, to guard our minds as sacred territory, and to anchor our identity in virtue rather than in the shifting sands of outcome. These are not comfortable laws. They ask things of you. They ask you to stop blaming, stop avoiding, stop outsourcing your peace of mind to the world's behavior. They ask you to step into the uncomfortable clarity of radical personal responsibility, and to discover, on the other side of that discomfort, a freedom most people never experience. Marcus Aurelius did not become the philosopher king by reading these ideas once and nodding his head. He practiced them, daily, relentlessly, against the backdrop of wars, plagues, betrayal, and grief. He failed sometimes. He went back to the principles. He got up. He tried again. And the result was a life and a legacy that 2,000 years have not erased. You do not need to be an emperor. You do not need to be a philosopher. You need only to be willing to do the work on the inside, day by day, without waiting for the outside world to cooperate first. That willingness is the beginning of everything. Start with one law, just one. Take it into tomorrow. See what it does to the quality of your thinking, your reactions, your choices. Then add another. Build slowly, the way the Stoics built, brick by brick, day by day, with patience and with fire. The war inside your mind is worth fighting. And now, you have 7 laws that can help you win it. Your mind is worth more than this one video. If this struck something in you, if even one of these laws landed with weight, then you already know you need more of this in your life. Subscribe to this channel right now. Hit the bell so you never miss a new video. We go deep here, into Stoicism, mental mastery, discipline, and the kind of ancient wisdom that actually changes how you live. Join thousands of people who are choosing to think differently. You deserve a channel that challenges you to grow. We release new content every week. Your next breakthrough could be one video away. Subscribe and ring the bell. Crossed swords. The Stoic path is walked daily. Every video on this channel is a step toward the mind you deserve. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below with the law that hit hardest for you. And remember, the obstacle is the way. Subscribe to the channel. Right pointing arrow. Stoicism, ancient wisdom, modern mastery.